Picture this. You're 71 years old. You've just walked out of prison after 27 years behind bars. The world has changed. Technology has evolved. Your family has aged. Your friends have moved on. Most people would say your life is over. But Nelson Mandela? He was just getting started. Imprisoned for 27 years, freed at 71. At 75, president of a nation. How did Mandela transform pain into power? This is the most extraordinary story of resilience you'll ever hear. A story that will shatter every excuse you've ever made about being too old, too late, or too far behind. A story that proves it's never too late to start over and win. Nelson Mandela was born in 1918 in South Africa, where being black meant being invisible, where your skin color determined not just where you could live, work, or eat, but whether you had any rights at all. By 1962, at 44 years old, Mandela had already lived what many would consider a full life. He was a successful lawyer, one of the first black attorneys in Johannesburg. He was a father, a husband, a community leader. He had a thriving law practice with his partner, Oliver Tambo, defending people who couldn't defend themselves. Think about that for a moment. At 44, most of us are hitting our professional stride. We're established. We have routines, responsibilities, mortgages, kids in school. We've built a life, and we're comfortable in it. But Mandela looked around at his country and couldn't stay comfortable. He couldn't practice law while his people were denied basic human dignity. He couldn't raise his children in a system designed to crush their dreams before they were even born. So he made a choice that would change everything. He joined the African National Congress. He organized protests. He fought against apartheid, not with violence at first, but with his voice, his law degree, his unshakable belief that justice was possible. And for that choice, on August 5th, 1962, Nelson Mandela was arrested. Many thought, it's over. At 44, his life ends here. His law practice? Gone. His role as a father? Interrupted. His dreams for a free South Africa? Crushed. Mandela didn't know it then, but his true journey, the one that would inspire millions and reshape a nation, was just beginning. 27 years. Let that number sink in. 27 years in prison. While you and I complain about a difficult week at work, Mandela woke up every single day for 9,855 days in a 6-by-6-foot cell on Robben Island. No internet, no smartphone, no Netflix, no comfort food, no freedom to see his family when he wanted, no freedom to walk down a street or feel grass under his feet. The conditions were brutal. He slept on a mat on the floor. His meals were mealy porridge and thin soup. In winter, the cell was freezing. In summer, it was suffocating. The guards treated him like he was nothing, less than human. But here's what separated Mandela from everyone else who might have been broken by those circumstances. He refused to waste a single day. Listen to this carefully, because this is the secret that transformed a prisoner into the most respected leader of the 20th century. Mandela turned his prison cell into a classroom. Every day he studied. He read everything he could get his hands on: law books, philosophy, history, literature. He learned Afrikaans, the language of his oppressors, because he understood that to negotiate with your enemies, you must understand how they think. He didn't just study books, he studied himself. Every morning he woke up before dawn and meditated. He examined his anger, his resentment, his dreams. He asked himself the hard questions. What kind of man do I want to be when I get out of here? What kind of leader does my country need? But perhaps most remarkably, he turned that prison into a university for everyone around him. He taught other prisoners to read and write. He organized discussions about politics, philosophy, and justice. The guards called Robben Island Mandela University because so many political prisoners left there more educated and more determined than when they arrived. At 50, when most people start thinking about slowing down, Mandela was accelerating his learning. At 55, while others worry about retirement plans, he was planning a new South Africa. At 60, when most people feel their best years are behind them, Mandela was preparing for his greatest achievements. You know what his secret was? He understood a truth that few people ever discover. Time isn't your enemy when you're growing. Age isn't a limitation when you're learning. Setbacks aren't endings when you're preparing. For 27 years, while the world moved on without him, Mandela was becoming the man his country would need. He wasn't just surviving prison, he was using it to transform himself into someone capable of transforming a nation. February 11th, 1990. The day that changed everything. After 27 years, 4 months, and 13 days behind bars, Nelson Mandela walked through the gates of Victor Verster Prison. He was 71 years old. 71. Think about what that means. In 1990, the average life expectancy was around 72 years. By every statistical measure, Mandela should have been winding down, not gearing up. He should have been thinking about retirement, not revolution. The world media descended on Cape Town that day. The questions weren't about what Mandela might accomplish. They were about whether he was even relevant anymore. Can a 71-year-old man imprisoned for 27 years understand the modern world? Has the struggle moved beyond him? Is he too old to lead? Some reporters literally asked if he would be able to keep up with the pace of modern politics. They wondered if he understood computers, if he could adapt to how the world had changed during his absence. But Mandela wasn't concerned with their doubts. He had work to do. Within months, he was traveling the world, meeting with heads of state, giving speeches to massive crowds. While other 71-year-olds might have been taking afternoon naps, Mandela was negotiating the future of South Africa 18 hours a day. In 1991, at 72, he was elected president of the African National Congress, the organization he'd served before his imprisonment, now led by a man who'd aged nearly 3 decades behind bars. In 1993, at 74, he shared the Nobel Peace Prize with F.W. de Klerk for their work dismantling apartheid and establishing multiracial democracy. But the crowning achievement was still to come. The skeptics said he was too old to run for president. Let younger leaders take over, they argued. You've done enough, others said. Enjoy your freedom. Mandela had a different plan. At 75 years old, when most people are great-grandparents content to tell stories of the past, Nelson Mandela was about to make the greatest story of his life. While many at 71 think it's too late to dream big, Mandela was just beginning to fulfill his life's greatest purpose. May 10th, 1994. Under the African sun, in front of a crowd of world leaders and millions watching on television, Nelson Mandela raised his right hand and was sworn in as the first Black president of South Africa. He was 75 years old. Let me put this in perspective for you. At 75, most people are thinking about their legacy, not building it. They're reflecting on what they've accomplished, not starting their greatest accomplishment. They're talking about the good old days, not creating the greatest days of their lives. But Mandela? He was just hitting his stride. And here's the most remarkable part. It wasn't just that he became president at 75. It was how he led that taught the world what true greatness looks like. Many expected him to govern with anger. After 27 years of imprisonment, after decades of oppression, wouldn't you want some revenge? Wouldn't you want to settle some scores? Make them pay for what they did to you, to your people? Instead, Mandela chose reconciliation. He invited his former jailers to his inauguration. He had tea with Betsy Verwoerd, the widow of Hendrik Verwoerd, the architect of apartheid, the man whose policies put Mandela behind bars. When people asked him how he could forgive, Mandela said something that reveals the secret to his success. Resentment is like drinking poison and hoping your enemies will die. I knew that if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I would still be in prison. At 75, he was demonstrating a level of emotional intelligence that leaders half his age couldn't comprehend. He established the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to heal the country's wounds. He learned rugby to connect with Afrikaner culture. He spoke multiple languages to reach every corner of his diverse nation. And perhaps most importantly, he voluntarily stepped down after one term. At 89, when he could have stayed in power for life, like so many African leaders, Mandela chose to set a precedent of peaceful transition. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. If Nelson Mandela could start over at 71 after 27 years in prison, after losing nearly 3 decades of his life to a cause that seemed hopeless, if he could become president at 75 when conventional wisdom said he was too old to lead, if he could transform a nation's hatred into hope, its division into unity, its despair into possibility, what exactly is stopping you from starting over today? Let's be honest about what you have that Mandela didn't have when he walked out of that prison. You have total freedom. You can choose your path, your studies, your projects, your relationships. You can travel where you want, eat what you want, speak to who you want. You have modern technology. You can learn anything online, connect with anyone globally, start a business from your living room, share your message with millions. You have life experience. Every challenge you have faced, every failure you've endured, every success you've achieved, that's wisdom. That's preparation. That's your curriculum for what comes next. You have time. Even if you're 70, you potentially have 15 to 20 years ahead of you. That's enough time to master a new skill, build a business, write a book, change careers, impact lives, leave a legacy. The question isn't whether you're old enough to start over. The question is, when will you stop making excuses and start making history? The Mandela Challenge, your 30-day transformation. Here's your Mandela Challenge for the next 30 days. 1. Choose a learning. Like Mandela studied in prison, choose something new to learn, a language, a skill, an online course. 2. Define your vision. Write in one sentence the legacy you want to leave. Tape it to your bathroom mirror. 3. Act like a leader. Identify a cause greater than yourself and dedicate at least 2 hours per week to it. But here's what I need you to understand. Most people won't do this challenge. Most people will watch this video, feel inspired for about 24 hours, and then go back to their excuses. They'll say they're too busy, too tired, too set in their ways. They'll say they'll start next month, next year, when things are less complicated. That's exactly the thinking that keeps people stuck forever. Mandela didn't wait for perfect conditions. He started transforming himself in a prison cell. He didn't wait until he felt ready. He got ready by doing the work. The question is, are you going to be like most people, or are you going to be like Mandela? Nelson Mandela once said, "There is nothing like returning to a place that remains unchanged to discover the ways in which you yourself have altered." Here's what I want you to understand. You don't have to return to the same life you left this morning. You don't have to wake up tomorrow as the same person you were today. Every single day is an opportunity to start over. Every moment is a chance to choose growth over comfort, action over excuses, possibility over limitation. Your story isn't over. In fact, if you're over 50, your story might just be reaching its most important chapters. The chapters where wisdom meets opportunity, where experience meets vision, where preparation meets destiny. If Mandela could do it at 71, you can do it today. If he could become president at 75, what can you become at your age? Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification for greatness. The clock is ticking, not because you're running out of time, but because the world is running out of time to benefit from what you have to offer. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting for younger competitors to step aside. Your time is now. Your moment is now. Your opportunity is now. What are you going to do with it? If this story moved you, click that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of real people who discovered their greatest chapters later in life. And in the comments, tell me, what's one thing you're going to stop saying you're too old for? Your best chapter might still be ahead.